UFC 164 press conference. What an exciting event we're going to have here on Saturday. On behalf of all of us, express our appreciation for all the fans, for UFC organization, for Dana White, all the fighters, for coming to Milwaukee and allowing us to have our fans across the region experience the very best in this event. Of course, we've also got some great Harley riders from across the country, indeed from across the globe, coming to Milwaukee in the tens of thousands here over the weekend, and we know we're going to have thousands of them joining us here on Saturday as well. It's going to be an incredibly exciting weekend. It all starts right now, and we look forward to and thank all of our fans and all of the UFC and fighters for being here and joining us in Milwaukee. Have a great time while you're here. Now I'd like to introduce back to Milwaukee, welcome back to Milwaukee, and introduce Dana White, President, UFC. Thank you.
What's up, Milwaukee? How are you? Thanks for coming out today, everybody. We appreciate it. Crazy week. Great fights last night, and we'll have some great fights on Saturday night, too. Who has the first question? John?
Let's start with Anthony, please. Anthony, obviously, you were initially preparing for a shot at 145 before getting this opportunity. Had you done anything yet with your body, with your training, to start preparing for that drop before you got this opportunity?
Yeah, I was actually training in Brazil. Weight was down to like under 160, so I was real light training in Brazil. It was for the press conference. Rolling with Phil Davis. It was the last round. We were about to catch our flight. Just get a light sweat in, and my knee just got put in the wrong position, and I heard a pop. I didn't know how bad it was until I got back, went to the doctor, and it was a torn LCL. And luckily for me, it didn't require surgery, so it kind of lined me up perfectly for this title shot. I mean, the cards couldn't have played out better. I mean, it's amazing the way this happened, so it's just crazy for me.
And a lot of people have looked at that and thought, you know, it's only about a 4-week difference between when you would have fought to now. When you talk about your condition, I mean, if this had been any other fight, if it hadn't been in Milwaukee, if it hadn't been for the title, would you be fighting right now, or do you feel like you kind of rushed it a little bit because this was such a huge opportunity?
I've been training since February, man. Right after the Cowboy fight, I knew I was getting a title shot. I've been in camp since February. This is one of the longest camps of my life. So I don't care who it would have been against or when it was. I was taking this next fight. And I mean, Dana knows I was out there begging for the fight with Aldo, and it just wouldn't happen.
And lastly for you, Anthony, obviously we thought you were going to have a title shot 2 years ago. Circumstances didn't work out that way. What's been your mindset these past 2 years? Has there ever been any anger, frustration, you know, kind of woe is me that things weren't working out for you, or, you know, have you been looking forward to this? What's it been like for you?
No, I mean, this is the biggest moments of my life, you know, so I want to enjoy this as much as possible. And my mindset has been finish fights and do it impressively, and the title shot will come, and that's all I've been focusing on, finishing fights and doing it impressively.
And real quickly, if I could, for Chad, please. Chad, before you had your title shot, you had 3 decisions in a row. You know, since then, it's been 3 first-round finishes. Is there something you could point to, whether it be the title shot loss, the experience? I mean, did something change in you, that your game changed, your approach changed? What's been the difference?
For me, I think it's just, you know, I'm kind of finding myself as a fighter, just getting comfortable with my stand-up. And, you know, after that first knockout of McKenzie, I kind of realized, you know, I could put people down if I hit them in the right spot. And I think it just kind of made my confidence go up. And then also having Dwayne Ludwig at our camp now, you know, drilling tons and tons of stand-up stuff we've never really done before has helped a ton. So I'm feeling good, man.
And if I could talk about your mindset as well, you said you wanted a rematch very clearly, but, you know, McKenzie, Meza, no offense to those guys, but you know they weren't going to get you a rematch if you got those wins. Were you frustrated all along the way that you weren't getting the fights that were going to get you back to where you wanted to be?
I mean, every fight's a great fight, honestly, in the UFC. I mean, it's experience, and like I said, it's going to help my confidence. But, you know, it is frustrating having guys fall out, get injured. You know, it's part of the sport, but yeah, it's super frustrating. You know, I had, I think, 4 guys pull out either last minute or, you know, even wasn't last minute, just still pulled out, and it sucks. You know, you go through a whole camp trying to get ready for a certain style, and then, you know, it's not who you're fighting anymore. Last minute, you get thrown someone. So, you know, it's all part of the sport, but yeah, it gets frustrating.
And just finally, do you feel like this is the one that could get you back there? I mean, you got guys like, you know, Lamas, Swanson that are there. Do you feel like you should be able to leapfrog those guys if you're impressive against Guida?
I do, man. I think if I put on a great performance, you know, this should put me right back in line for that title. You know, I'm feeling better than I ever have, and expecting to go out there and kill Clay, and I should be right back in there, so hopefully.
Hey guys, Ron Kruk with Inside MMA. Question for Anthony Pettis. Anthony, I was at your gym this morning interviewing your coach, Duke Rufus, and there was a local crew here that was doing a story on the gym, and I've seen you on TV a lot. Will you talk about just the support that Milwaukee and your hometown has shown you as you enter into this fight?
Yeah, I mean, right when the announcement was made that I was going to be fighting Ben Henderson opposed to T.J. Grant, and I know T.J. had an injury. I feel for him, man. I was in the same position, but Milwaukee supports our athletes. I mean, they all come out and they get after it. I mean, we got the Packers, the Bucks from the home of the Bucks, get the Brewers here. So I mean, everybody here just supports our athletes, and I'm feeling the love, and it feels good to be fighting in my hometown finally.
Benson had the home cage advantage in the first fight. Is there such a thing of having that hometown advantage?
No, because I mean, I won the fight in Benson's hometown, and you know, he has the same thing he can do here. I got to go out there and perform, and when that cage door closes, it's me and Ben. I mean, you can hear the crowd, you can hear everything else, but it's my skills versus his skills.
And then finally, a question for Josh Barnett. Josh, it's been over 11 years since you stepped foot into the octagon. The sport has changed immensely over that time. In your opinion, what has been the most important change in the sport of MMA since you last stepped foot in the UFC?
That would be a question probably that would take longer than is necessary for a press conference like this. But honestly, with media exposure, with a wider fan base, and a greater opportunity to gather fans and to be seen, I mean, now you're able to have everybody see everything that's going on. It's not like UFC 28 or in the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, aka the largest pawn shop in the world, and we're just fighting just because, you know, it's an opportunity to fight in the UFC. It's still the UFC. It's just that nobody's watching us, and then we're blocked out. No cable companies want to carry us, and it's gone from that to where, you know, we have major alcohol sponsors, and we're on national television and commercials everywhere, and we all get to look like idiots hawking products, and that's great. That's a real plus.
Just a quick follow-up. What's your mindset as you enter into this fight? There are a lot of people who didn't think you would ever set foot in the UFC again, and here you are taking on Frank Mir.
Have you ever seen me fight before?
Few times.
Yeah.
Few times.
You think anything's changed since then for me?
Probably not, but just if you could explain your emotional...
I see women and children in the audience, so I prefer not to describe what I'm going through in my head.
I guess things haven't changed. Thank you.
Question for Chad. Chad, when you were answering John's question, you said that you kind of defined yourself as a fighter during these 3 first-round knockouts, and then you got your confidence, and that was kind of an amazing thing. You went to Brazil and fought Jose Aldo, and you weren't totally confident in your skills as a fighter. Can you talk a little bit about that? You know, that sounds surprising to hear.
I mean, it's not that I wasn't confident as a fighter. The stand-up part of the game wasn't, you know, it wasn't there for me yet. You know, a lot of people said that I took that fight a little too early in my career, but it's a title shot, man. I'm not going to turn it down. You know, you never know what's going to happen in the sport. And, of course, I took it, got in there, and honestly felt like I was winning that round, obviously, until the last few seconds. So, you know I can hang, and I feel like I'm a completely different fighter now. I feel like I've grown and gotten so much better since then. So, definitely not overlooking Clay. You know, this is going to be a tough fight. Clay's a gamer. We've all seen what he can do in there, and I'm going to bring it to him. But, you know, I definitely want that title shot.
2 other follow-up questions for you. One, following up on your comments on Jose. You know, he's been a tough guy for anybody to take down. You think of the great wrestlers. You know, Frankie Edgar really didn't have a lot of success taking him down. Do you think, you know, if you got the other opportunity with now you have stand-up and he would have to, you know, worry about your stand-up as well as just worrying about your wrestling, that might make a difference and swing the advantage to you if you had that opportunity again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm, you know, just as athletic as he is. Obviously, a stand-up is something it's very dangerous, and we know that it's probably the most dangerous in the first round or first 2 rounds. And you know, for me, being able to train and go over all the crazy techniques that I've been going over with Dwayne Ludwig, and you know, all the openings that I'm seeing now, working on my footwork, and just kind of honing in the power and putting it where it needs to be. I think that's going to be a huge difference for me fighting Jose Aldo the second time. So.
And then specific to fighting Clay, Clay obviously has incorporated a lot of movement into his game, and so he's not as easy to get his hands on as he once was. How does that affect how you go against him?
Yeah, it's always hard to try to train for a guy like that. We've had to do it at Team Alpha Male with Cruz for Faber. And we had to do it actually the last 2 camps because I was supposed to fight Clay that last fight also. So, I've basically gone through almost 2 camps for Clay. But yeah, it's tough, and also you just don't know what Clay's going to show up. Is it going to be the one that's in your face banging, just never letting you breathe, or is it the kind of the point fighter that we've kind of seen lately? So, you just don't know. But yeah, we definitely train for both, and that movement is something we're definitely we have our mind and our eyes on, and we plan for it.
And Clay, just to ask you, do you feel your movement has made you a better fighter now? Do you feel like that you've incorporated that into your game, that you're better than you were previously?
Absolutely. I don't just stalk forward like a zombie and come out, swinging for the fences. There's meaning and there's purpose behind my footwork now. We've worked a lot of it, and I've watched a lot of Frankie Edgar's footwork, and mine's a little more erratic and probably sloppier, but I think I have a lot of the same tendencies as Frankie as far as, making it hard to track down our footwork and putting more of a long-range step in there too,
And Dane, I wanted to ask you a question. When Josh was talking and he mentioned the Taj Mahal, you kind of had a little slight grin on your face, and I didn't know if there was anything, like it brought back memories as he brought up the Taj Mahal. Did that?
No, what he said was funny, but I love the Taj Mahal, and that back then, as he was explaining our history, no venues wanted us. It was tough to even get venues back then, and Donald Trump was a guy who saw the potential in this thing and was really supportive and let us come to the Taj.
And then lastly, for one question for both Ben and Anthony, when you guys fought previously, you were in the WEC cage, which was smaller. Do either of you think that the bigger cage, is going to make a difference in the fight? And even when you fought Clay, that was in the, the smaller cage. Do you think the bigger cage now was going to have an impact on the fight?
I don't really think the size of the cage is going to play a determining factor in which way the fight goes. Him and I are going to figure out which way the fight goes.
Yeah, when you're in there, you can't even tell the difference in the size of the cage. My game plan's always the same. I'm the same guy, and everybody knows what I'm going to do. You just got to stop it.
Clay, fighting here in Milwaukee, you're about an hour and a half away from Chicago. Do you feel some of the same pressures that you did back in Chicago, back when you fought in January against Hatsu Hayoki, when it comes to family and things like that, or is it kind of cooled down a little bit, not as intense?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't feel pressure when I fight at home. It's fun just to go out there and know that you have a good solid support system from obviously Chicago, land-based fighters and my fans, and hopefully I have some here in Milwaukee too, being that I faced, the number 1 contender in Anthony Pettis, who's a great competitor. I hope people don't look down on me for that. It was an honor to face him, and I'm excited for him and Ben's rematch. I've been chomping at the bit to see these guys get at it again, so I know there'll be people coming over the border, and hopefully a lot of those motorcycle fans are fight fans too, because they're going to get a great night of fights here at the Bradley Center. So no, to answer the question, I don't feel pressure. It's nice to be back after 6 or 7 years of not fighting, in the Midwest.
Now, Ben, you fought Gilbert Melendez in his home area. What is it like, again, fighting, when you guys fought the last time you fought in your area? But tell us about fighting here in Milwaukee, and you also fought Mark Bocek in front of, partisan and crowd. Do you enjoy, fighting in front of and being being booed heavily?
It is what it is. I don't dislike it. I don't like it particularly. It's fine. I'm okay fighting in San Jose, fighting in Toronto, like you said. It doesn't really matter to me. Once those cage doors closes, all the other stuff is just background noise.
Question for Clay, right over here. Your first 2 fights at featherweight haven't been the typical Clay Guida fights. Why do you feel like this is the best weight class for you?
My first fight, I've had 1 fight at featherweight. This is my second fight.
Yeah.
Did you do your homework, or did you look over at the other guy and just...
Yeah, I just totally...
Okay. I fought in January.
Right.
you've been waiting that whole time to ask me this question now. Let's see, January, February. I'm not a mathematician, but it's August, which is the 8th month of the year. You got my cell phone number and my manager's number. You could have asked me that question the last 8 months. You know me better than that, man. You're going to see a great Clay Guida come Saturday night.
The question was more, why do you feel like featherweight is better for you than lightweight? Because you had a very good run at lightweight.
Yeah, you know what? It was one of those things. We lost to the best. We beat some of the best at lightweight. I just wanted to check out a different landscape and see what a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger featherweight could do. But now I faced a guy that was almost 6 feet tall, so that was a tough matchup for me. And now I actually get a little bit of reach advantage in this fight, so we're definitely going to use that. And I feel stronger. The diet's great, and it's nice to actually follow a diet like a real athlete, a professional athlete, and I think this is a good fit for me, so we'll see how it comes Saturday night.
And then you had the privilege of fighting both Benson and Anthony in the past at lightweight. Who do you think is going to win on Saturday?
Man, put me on the spot here. Both very game fighters. These guys bring it every time, and I think we've seen a more mature Anthony Pettis since we fought, and he's definitely fixed some holes in his game. He's helped me fix some holes in my game, and Ben Henderson he's been one of the most impressive fighters in the UFC and all of mixed martial arts. He's just on a tear lately. His confidence level's through the roof. His ground and pound is second to none. His takedowns, means that he just tries new things every fight, And Anthony Pettis is going to move forward and try to take his head off. I gotta stick with the wrestler on this one. I think it's going to go to an amazing 5-round split decision with the other long-haired guy with his hand raised. But it's going to be an amazing fight of the year.
Thanks. And just one question for Josh. Usually on Twitter and interviews, things like that, you're pretty easygoing, fun-loving. But yesterday you got into it a little bit with Ben Askren. Why did that bother you so much, what he said to you?
Well, I'm not here to make press for small people, but I just don't understand. I don't call people out. I'm sure you can attest to that. People are like, who do you want to fight next? I'm like, I don't really care. I'm not going to call them out. I'm not going to ask for anybody, because that's not really, the process is much more difficult than that, for one. I mean, you can just say, I want to fight Joe Schmo, but there's like a whole bunch of people in between that will decide whether or not that fight's going to happen or not. And if you have a personal problem with Joe Schmo, then instead of talking about it, just go walk over there and poke him in the eye, But to me, it's more of a reflection of just why antagonize somebody for no reason? Why try to garner attention by doing something negative? Why not do something positive? Do something on your own merits without the need of anybody else, whether it be to antagonize them or draw their ire, or even to have them help you out. Do it on your own. Do it for your own positive reasons to make your own stars shine bright, instead of trying to piggyback onto somebody else. And then to do it in a negative way. And obviously, I have a fight coming up, and I have a 260-pound grown man who's going to try and tear off one of my arms. I'm a little in the mood for violence, so I just took it immediately like, all right, well, you're messing with me. That's already stupid. Why would you do that? I don't even know you. Oh, well, then, F you then. I don't have anything more to say to you. Clearly, you have a problem. You took it to 2. I'm going to take it to 100. That's it. But from here on out, like, for the rest of all you press guys, don't ask me about it. Don't help the losers, all right? Put it out there for everybody that's up here training hard, doing great things, doing things on their own merits, living on their own word and not somebody else's name. Do that.
Dana, question, I guess a 3-part question for you. We talk about this all the time. Yeah, you are the promoter, but you're also a fight fan, a huge fight fan. Can you look at these 3 matchups and describe what you envision happening on Saturday night?
Yeah, I love this card. Obviously, the main event is the fight people have been waiting for a long time. It's been a long, hard road for Pettis to get back here. And I guess the same goes for Josh Barnett. It's been a long, hard road to get back here. Him and Mir are 2 of the best heavyweights now over the last more than a decade. These guys have been two of the best heavyweights in the world. And funny that finally now they're going to meet. And then the guys on the end here should be an action-packed, non-stop, absolute war.
For Frank, please. Frank, obviously nobody likes to really dwell on their losses and that sort of thing, but I know that you're a student of the game. When you look back at your 2 losses, are there any common threads you can put together of things that went wrong that you need to correct or need to do differently, or were they just 2 different fights that you happened to come up short?
Well, the first fight, Dos Santos, was a phenomenal fighter. I wasn't as prepared as I should be going into the fight. The second fight with Daniel, I was extremely prepared, just not the confidence to employ my game plan. I think I waited and see what he was going to do, and I started up the fight too late. I didn't really turn it on to the 3rd round, and 3-round fight, that's not enough time to do anything.
And I know you've said ultimately, your eye is still on the title. You want to be a champion again, but is there any sense of desperation to feel that this could be a career crossroads of sort? Obviously nobody likes to think about the possibility of a 3rd straight loss, but would that be fairly devastating for you at this point in your career?
Obviously no one wants to lose 1 or 2 or even 3 in a row, obviously. But at the same time, as long as you're fighting game opponents, it kind of, in a sense, that helps. I think the scary aspect of our game is losing to somebody that no one knows who they are. That's a lot more frightening. So as long as I can stay in there and constantly fight people that are household names and that are recognized as top 10 competition, then it keeps you afloat a little bit better. You still got to string together wins, obviously, but nowhere near as detrimental as a no-name loss. If I'm fighting on a prelim and against a no-namer, that's a scary aspect.
Gentlemen, Tom Pippins from Fox 6. Anthony, of course, is our hometown guy with a wonderful story, and Benson had some time with you earlier this summer at our TV station. You're 2 wonderful young men in the cage, out of the cage. I wonder if you have a relationship of any kind with one another, what your attitude is toward one another, both professionally but also personally, please.
Yeah, for me, all my opponents, I respect all my opponents because it takes a certain type of person to get in here and do what we do, make the sacrifices we make. And Ben, he's the top of the division right now. So I look at him as the guy that I want his belt. So strictly professional, nothing against him personally at all. And we don't really have a personal relationship or a friendship, but it's a mutual respect.
I would have to definitely agree. Professionally, everything's good. We're work for the same company, so to speak, but we compete against each other. For the top spot. We don't really have a personal relationship, a friendship, or anything like that. But cordial enough. We see each other, shake hands. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Respectful towards one another.
A question for Benson Henderson. Benson, with the second fight, with this revenge, that spinning kick, the kick that he did to you in the first fight is everywhere in all videos, Does it bother you, watching that over and over again?
I wouldn't say it really bothers me watching it over and over again. At some point, you have to just, man up and be able to move on. I was able to man up after that fight, after the loss, and move on when I was getting ready for Mark Bocek, and then the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. So it's a process. But I was, able to just man up and, dust off my shoulders and just move forward.
How do you think that you've changed since then, since that fight?
Pretty much the same, to be honest. I haven't really, obviously you want to get better, you want to improve, you want to get your skill set better. Always trying to get 1% better every single day. But I haven't had a wholesale change of approach of how I fight or my tactics or anything. But you always want to get your fundamentals better and that sort of stuff. But the biggest change is probably just the focus inside the octagon, and then also sticking to the game plan.
Victoria Balachova, Russian Chicago Magazine. My first question is for Frank. It's will be a little follow-up question what John just asked you. How is it mentally important for you, going off of 2 losses, come back into this fight and score a win?
Obviously it's real important, but like in any sports, all the athletes up here can tell you, anytime you start thinking about things outside performing just the match ahead of you, you start adding undue pressure and you start thinking about things that distract you from the task at hand. So honestly, whether you're on a win streak, you're on a loss streak, whether you're fighting for a title or you're fighting your first fight in the UFC, I think all of our mindsets are exactly the same just before you compete. And the only time that you start drifting from that mindset and you start thinking about all the implications of what a match could mean, that means you're distracted, and that usually affects your performance. So I just stay focused at the task at hand. I've been here a long time and I know that, And so it's just another fight like any other fight. They're all dangerous and they're all the most important. And like everybody, you know, the fight that you fight next is always the biggest, best, you know, craziest, you know, fight of your career. I never had one where anybody told me that, this one doesn't matter, it's a throwaway.
My next one is for Clay. We spoke with you at the end of last year when you were going off to featherweight and you were following the diet and it was something new for you. And we were talking a little bit how you cheated on the diet. So what changed during that period of time from the beginning of the year till now? Were you able to get this diet into as your lifestyle and follow it throughout this timeline? And are you still with the same nutritionist? And talk a little bit about that, please.
I don't cheat as much. I got my little snack pack, so I'm all good. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the mic helps.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, a couple of times I had my little meltdowns during camp, but I think that goes with, you know, just following a diet that you're not used to. And took a couple times, so we got it down pat this one. And I feel, you know, like a better person for it, and it's nice to lead a healthier lifestyle. So, but yeah, good question. You guys were there in Chicago when we were eating at Harry Caray's or whatever, and I had my plain chicken and salad, and feel great.
Josh, I know you just mentioned that you don't want to call out your opponent, solo to pick your next fight, but is the fact that Daniel Cormier is well signed with the UFC right now play the role of you signing a contract? Will you ever see a rematch in the future?
No, I actually don't worry about who's where and doing what. I make my own path. The fact that Cormier is here is a test to the fact that the best fighters are in the UFC. The UFC heavyweight division is the best in the world. As for the potential to meet him, it exists. What is that percentage? I have no idea. I don't lose any sleep at night about it. The only thing I can control is my training and my path in the UFC. That's all I'm going to do. Focus on destroying one person, you know, one fight at a time, and just continuing to be a better and stronger and meaner fighter. That's it. Whatever happens from here on out, it's not entirely up to me. The only thing that's up to me is to go out and win.
Anthony, we just all seen the Ben Askren last fight and how he destroyed his opponent. You were actually also filming for Russian Invasion show. How good and how bad is it to train with Ben Askren? Like, what does it bring to you that you can learn, but because of how good he is, does it bring you down?
Yeah, Ben's one of them guys that doesn't get the respect he deserves in the sport. He's an amazing athlete. You know, if you see him in the gym, you wouldn't expect much from him. You train with him, totally different story. I mean, he controls the wrestling. He's one of them guys, if he gets his hands on you, he's going to take you to the mat. So me being able to train with somebody like that every day, all the time, just makes my game get that much better. And like I said, Ben's one of them guys that just doesn't get the respect he deserves in the sport.
And my last one is for Benson. Since 2010, you haven't scored an exciting win. Everything was ending up in decision. Either it's split decision or it was the unanimous decision. Does it fire you going into the future or in the coming fight to score some more exciting win, either some ambition or finish it faster?
Not necessarily, no. I'm just after, like Frank was talking about earlier, just good performances. If you have a good performance, everything else will take care of itself. You know, the guy leaves his chin out there, you get a knockout, cool. The guy leaves his arm out there, his neck out there, you get a submission, awesome. But as long as you have a good performance, everything else is kind of a moot point, as long as you have a good performance. That's what I'm after.
Ben, you talked about staying focused on the game, on the fight plan. But also I want to ask you, from your first fight with Anthony, is there anything that he did in that fight that you believe you can't allow him to do in this rematch?
Anything he did in that fight that I can't do in the rematch?
You can't allow him to do in this rematch?
I guess probably the biggest thing is him coming forward. He's way better coming forward than he is backing up. We're going to put the pressure on him, not allow him to come forward.
Great, thanks.
Question for Frank and Josh. How, if you guys had fought in 02, 03 when you were younger, how do you think, would the fight be appreciably different than it will be on Saturday night in terms of style, what you guys were able to do then compared to now?
Okay. Well, in fantasy time jumping MMA. I imagine we would have actually drawn swords and went to first blood instead, since it was an older era, much more medieval.
That sounds pretty good. But you know, Frank, I'm just talking about when you matched up. A lot of people wanted to see that fight. Talked about you guys fighting, and you were a guy on the rise. Josh was the champion. You know, do you look then how it might have played out compared to what?
Well, I think it's to my advantage that the fight has played out now. I think that back then, I mean, you said it yourself, Josh was the champion, and I was still on prelims. So that in itself, I think, would be pretty indicative on how the fight would have played out.
And Dana, when you look back on that fight, I mean, to me, that in '04 something, you know, both guys had, you know, things happen that, you know, prevented it from happening. But had that fight been occurred, that would have been one of the fights that might have pushed the UFC ahead. You know, two great athletes that would have been big guys and people like heavyweights. You know, do you think that you lost a little bit just by not having that fight in the formative years when you were building the company going up?
No, I agree with Frank. I think that Frank is a more well-rounded fighter than he was then. You know, he was a really good jiu-jitsu guy back then, and now he's become more well-rounded. I think these guys are both better fighters than they were. Josh Barnett, if you think about Josh back when he was champion, the one thing that Barnett always had is he was the whole package. His striking was really good. I mean, if you remember him and Hizzo going at it that time, and if he got you on the ground, his wrestling was great, and if he got that top position, he was going to finish you. You know, I think that this is a great time for this fight to happen, where they're both well-rounded, seasoned veterans. You know, I think it's a great time for the fight. I don't know if it would have been any better 10 years ago than it is now.
Frank, talking about the well-roundedness, would you say a little bit of that has contributed to your now moving to Jackson?
I think, I think in the fights you see me knock out Crow Cop and Czech Congo, dropping them with strikes. I think my well-roundedness has started a platform occurring, you know, earlier on in my career. I think that, you know, the change to Jackson's mostly helped out my conditioning. I think that's one thing that people saw in the last fight. Had I, in the past, I don't think anybody would have seen me trying to push the pace in the third round earlier on. And now Jackson's being lighter and faster and being much more disciplined with my training regimen. I mean, 5 days a week I'm just hanging out with fighters and I have no wife or kids in sight. I attribute basically just more of a focused and a conditioned athlete.
One quick one for Anthony. Obviously, the Showtime kick, the videos everywhere with this fight coming back, that's all anybody talks about. People have asked Benson what he thinks when he sees it, but what do you think when you see it over and over?
I mean, it's one of the moments in my career that I got to be proud of. I mean, it's going to be a highlight for a very long time in mixed martial arts, but I want to show everybody that's not just what I'm all about. I mean, that was an amazing kick, but I have way more in my arsenal. I have way more skills just besides that kick. So, I mean, it's one of the things I'm going to appreciate for the rest of my life. It's an amazing moment, last round of a title fight. I mean, things like that don't happen much.
Jamie Panic, MMA Torch here. I got one for Ben and Anthony. That Showtime kick overshadows the fact that 4 minutes and 40 seconds of that fight was back and forth with both of you guys having success on the ground, on the feet. What do you take away from that first fight outside of the Showtime kick that you think you can improve upon into this rematch? I'll start with Ben.
Well, yeah, it was a good point. The fight ended up going to a decision. There was a lot of stuff happened before the kick, and you know, there was like maybe 30 seconds that happened after the fight, after the kick as well. There's a lot of stuff you can take away, but at the same time, it was such a long time ago. Like, we're both different fighters. I'm a better fighter. I'm more improved than I was then. I'm sure Anthony's a better fighter than 3 years ago. So while you can, you know, kind of pick and choose and notice tendencies and that sort of stuff, it was such a long time ago. We're both such different fighters, better fighters. It'd be hard to pick like one or two things to really point out.
I mean, for me, it's just a plus for the fans. I mean, the fans seen how close of a fight that was. You know, it just came down to the last couple seconds. Who wanted it more? And luckily for me, I throw that kick and it landed the way it did, and I came away with the victory. But like Ben said, it's 3 years later, totally different fighters, totally different fight, different place, different venue. In the UFC, a lot more riding than this one.
One follow-up, Anthony. Ben's had a few more fights than you've been able to have because of the injuries since that time. So you have more tape on him and what he's been doing in those fights. What have you noticed in his game over the last several fights that you think you can take advantage of on Saturday?
I mean, you go back to the first fight. I mean, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's a champ for a reason. He's got this aggression and this focus in the cage right now that's allowing him to win these fights. I mean, he's winning these decisions because he's making it exciting in there. He's pushing the pace. He's winning the exchanges. So not really something I can take advantage of. Something I got to match. I got to match that same aggression. I got to match that same intensity.
Thanks.
Question for Anthony. You were preparing yourself to face Jose Aldo, and now you are going to face Benson. Who do you think is toughest to be prepared for, Aldo or Benson?
I mean, that's a hard question to ask. I mean, going down to 45, that's a task in itself. Fighting in my weight class, against the guy that I already fought for. I mean, they're both very talented guys. My main objective is to prove that I'm the best in the world. And whether it's at 45 or 55, that was what I was set out to do. Unfortunately, the injury stopped me from fighting Jose Aldo, and I'm here fighting Ben Henderson now.
Right here up front.
Quick question for Chad. I'm wondering if Jose Aldo has talked about potentially going up to 155. It seems like something he wants to do. Is there a sense of urgency for you to get back? Is that a fight that I'm sure you want to rematch him? Is it important that when you get that title shot, he's still there?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely love to be the one to dethrone him. I mean, he's been on a tear for such a long time that it would mean a lot to me. But I don't see him going up to 55s at all. I mean, he has some issues cutting weight, I think, but I don't think it's too bad. I don't know, though. So I definitely would like to be the one to beat him, though.
I've got a question for Ben, to your left, Ben. So much is made about the kick, and I'm sure that you're pretty happy that this is hopefully one of the last times you'll have to talk about it. But in training camp as a fighter, is it something that you think about? I mean, do you prepare for flashy, kind of unorthodox, weird, off-the-cage stuff, or do you just basically prepare for an orthodox fighter, and if he does throw some of those things, it's like they kind of come out of nowhere and you just have to react to them in the cage?
No, we definitely prepared. I have a great training camp, great training partners. They threw a bunch of some weird stuff at me, keep me on my toes, make sure I had my eyes open and was paying attention to that stuff. But they did a really good job, a great job of being able to mimic and throw some of their own stuff that is unique, off the wall, some weird stuff that I've never seen before. So thanks to my training partners, I was able to get that look.
Are you expecting him to come out and throw a kick off the cage? And if he did, will you kind of just laugh and kind of smile at him? I mean, are you expecting him to do that almost as a mind game?
I'll be ready for it if it happens.
And then I'm wondering, after that fight, I can picture you clearing out the gym and saying bye to everybody, and then maybe when the lights are turned off, you trying it. Did you ever try a Showtime kick yourself?
I have not. No, I have not. I don't think I'm athletic enough for it.
Is that it? We good? Any more questions? Go ahead. We got one more here.
For Ben, a comment earlier was about, it was assumed or proposed that your fights weren't exciting. Your fights were exciting, but they were very close. How would that matter if this fight is another one of those razor-thin decisions? Would that matter to you, or would you like to, or would it be better for you to win it more convincingly, I guess?
Before he answers that question, first of all, he's undefeated in the UFC. Right. The kid, if you guys think back, when we talked about the 155-pound division, how stacked it is and how much talent there is in the 155, he's never lost in the UFC at 155, and he's been defending the title. I don't know exactly what it is. He's either going to tie the record, he'll break the record. He'll break the record if he wins on Saturday night for the most title defenses. He's got wins over Frankie Edgar twice, Cerrone twice. He beat Miller, Gilbert Melendez. He's beat everybody. I know he's not going to say that, so I wanted to jump in before he started talking. I mean, what the kid has accomplished in the UFC is unbelievable, and I know he has his own goal to break Anderson Silva's record. I have personally been the guy who said myself, he fought like Ben Henderson tonight, but the kid wins. The kid wins. He's undefeated. There's a lot to be said for that. So, go ahead. I apologize.
Appreciate it. I would just have to, agree, go off that, co-sign on that. What it all boils down to is getting your hand raised. Whether you do it impressively, emphatically, whether you do it by split decision or whatever the case may be. Honestly, if the guy walks into the cage and slips on banana peel and I win, I will take that win. I don't care, guys. But that being said, of course, you're always after, the way I fight, I'm always after beating the guy up. I just want to beat him up. I don't care about judges or decisions or this or that. I just want to go in there and beat the guy up. I want a 5-year-old kid to be able to walk into the cage afterwards and you tell the 5-year-old kid to say, hey, pick who you think won the fight. And I want the kid to be able to pick at me, oh yeah, he won, because the other guy looks all beat up. That's what I want.
Boom. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to square these guys off for photo ops. Thank you, Milwaukee. Appreciate it.